This entire video is going to be recorded and switched through this video switcher right here, which is the FeelWorld L4. So you might be wondering who the L is for, and I'm going to tell you. I'm going to try to help you figure that out. This is a 4-input video switcher, but as you can kind of see here, form factor wise, it actually does things that are pretty interesting, and I also have a variety of cameras connected to it, and obviously my audio is running through it as well. Everything going through this mixer right now is running over into my Mac Mini. I think I can actually show you this camera here. This is my projector camcorder that I made a video about because I just wanted to put a variety of sources into this. So this is a 2013 Sony Handycam that is working just fine, although I couldn't get all the stuff off the screen, so it still says standby. But I have my Mac Mini over here, and you can kind of see right there, I'm recording into Ecamm Live. So this does not have any internal recording. We're gonna kind of get into all that and everything that it can do, and then we're just gonna check out this mixer, the switcher, because it does some pretty cool things. But before we do that, I wanna switch over to this camera here to let you know that FeelWorld did send the L4 to me at no cost, but I'm under no obligation to make a video, say anything, do anything. I've actually had this for 5 or 6 months now, and wasn't sure initially if I was going to make a video, although I was interested in it. They just kind of asked for some feedback, and especially with things like the Rodecaster video coming out, it's kind of like, where does this fit? You know, would it fit into my workflow? Whose workflow might it fit into? And the more I've been using it, because I have been using it in a lot of streams, podcasts, video calls, that kind of stuff, just also playing around with it, trying to figure it out on my own, I really do think it does have a place in the ever increasingly crowded world of video switchers, because they've done some pretty unique things that unique to know about. So what do you get with this switcher? Kind of what does it offer you? It is a 4 HDMI input, but technically kind of a 5-input switcher, which is pretty interesting. This is FeelWorld's first foray into the world of video switchers, but they're not a new company. They've been around doing video monitors and camera monitors and field monitors and stuff for a long time. And the reason I said you kind of have 4 is you see right here, I have 4 HDMI inputs, I have 4 HDMI cables, but you also do have SDI in and SDI out. And so right here on this part, this would be an SDI input if I had SDI connected, which is pretty cool because a lot of switchers don't have SDI, much less just one that's just kind of there in case you need it. You do have audio input. I don't know if I can show this too clearly on here. You do have, see this audio input and audio output, as is the case with pretty much all these switchers. I'll give you some examples here. The ATEM Mini, great simple video switcher, $300 MSRP. It has it has 2 channels, mic 1 and mic 2, but I do not like using audio in the ATEM. It just, the audio quality is not good. And that kind of goes for most of these switchers. I also have the Ulanzi DDO2, which I want to make a video about because in addition to kind of looking like it has googly eyes, which is hilarious to me, this is a really sweet, simple switcher that also kind of has some cool tricks up its sleeve that are worth talking about. This handles audio a little bit better than the ATEM, but it's still nothing amazing. Really, if you want a switcher that has audio, covered in all the bases you're gonna need, the Rodecaster video is the way to go because you've got not just 2 XLR inputs, but basically just there's a Rodecaster Duo inside of this. This also is significantly more expensive with an MSRP of $1,200. The FeelWorld L4 has an MSRP of $540, so it's more expensive than the base model ATEMs, but significantly less expensive than the Rodecaster video, and so we'll talk about why that might be and all that kind of stuff. Now, you do also have a headphone output here, an Ethernet connection, USB control, you have a program out HDMI source, and then your 2 SDIs and a locking power cable. And then on the side over here, you have your power switch, and then this USB is specifically for doing firmware updates, or if you want to, I think I can show you, let me see. If I pop this here, I can pop this little logo on screen here where it says L4. You can change this logo to be your own thing, and this is where you have to import different logo files. It's that USB on the side, and they need to be .bin files, which aren't as common or as easy to create as like a PNG or something would be. There is a software component that you can use with this, and it's what FeelWorld says you should use to create your logo files, but I have found the software to be not the best. It's not like if you have the ATEM and then the ATEM production switcher software is like really robust and, you know, kind of even expands the capabilities of the switcher. With the FeelWorld, I don't feel like the software expands the capabilities. I feel like if you get this switcher, it's because you want this physical thing right here, which is actually what I really want to talk about. Now, something really cool is that even though this is a 1080p switcher, it can take inputs up to 4K 60. And that's why I actually wanted to do a variety of inputs. So this is my Sony FX3 running 4K 30 into the switcher. This is my Sony a7S III running 4K 30. This is actually my Sony a7 IV running 1080 30. And this is, again, my Sony projector Handycam running 1080 30. So all these different sources, basically up to 4K 60, any HDMI source or SDI source that you put into this, it will figure out and incorporate into your switching capabilities. Obviously, it's ideal if you can, you know, match frame rates and stuff, because that makes things sync up and just work together a little bit better. But if you wanted to mix in different cameras, if you wanted to mix in consoles, if you want to mix in computers, you know, you kind of don't have to worry. This will take anything you throw at it. And that is really where I wanted to go into what makes this so interesting, at least to me, is because, like I said, FeelWorld's new to the world of video switching. This is their first one, I believe, and you know, the ATEM Mini came out over 5 years ago at this point. So video switchers have been around for a long time, but these super compact, affordable video switchers are relatively new, although now they have been a number of years. But man, when the ATEM Mini first came out, like, you can watch my video on the ATEM Mini that I made not long after I got this. My mind is completely blown, because the ability to do multi-camera switching used to just be so expensive before this. So when this showed up and it's like, yeah, you can get the base model for $300, it was just, I had to attempt to keep my mind from just completely exploding all over the place, because that is mind-blowing. Now that it's been a few more years, there's other competitors. There's things like the Ulanzi, which $300, same price as the starting price of the ATEM Mini. And then there's also the world of what I call production suites, which are things that go way beyond switching. So that's like the Rodecaster Video and the YOLO Box Ultra, things that, yes, they do take inputs and let you switch between them, but they also basically let you do everything I'm doing back here through Ecamm Live, just in the device itself, on the fly, live, you know, to at least an extent, and to differing abilities. We'll talk about these also as well, but you know, the price goes up, $1,200, $1,500, $1,600 over here versus, you know, $300, $540. So there's quite a price range. But what I think FeelWorld did so well with the L4 is lean into their strengths. So they're showing up into this market several years late. There's already some great competitors at great prices. They're going to put out a first version product, and it's going to be at a little bit higher price, $540 versus $300. What are you getting? You're getting this giant 10-inch display, and this is the thing that kind of makes this. This is actually the form factor that I did expect the Rodecaster Video to have, or something similar when this came out. I kind of expected a big touchscreen type interface, and this, like, I cannot tell you how nice this touchscreen is, because FeelWorld has been making displays and screens for a really long time. And that's where I think they incorporated so much cool stuff that they are experienced in and they are good at into this switcher. And that is this giant 10-inch touch display. I'm not sure exactly what the resolution is here, but it looks great. It's super clear. Even the small details are very easy to read. And then it's also touch capable. So everything that you touch, you know, it's kind of like a smartphone in terms of super responsive. It is a very high quality display. And when you look at, you know, 10-inch camera monitors, paying $400 to $500 for a 10-inch, a really nice field monitor is not really an outrageous price. And so throwing in all of the video switching capabilities and audio capabilities as well, I think that makes this a really good deal if you just want that standalone display where you don't have to connect an external display, you don't have to do anything else other than connect your input sources and be done. You know, depending on your setups, especially something super portable, this is incredibly helpful. Now, as we're talking about the display, there's something I've been waiting to do for like the whole 6 months I've had this, and I'm really excited to do that right now, and that is some unnecessary ASMR. I don't know if you could actually even hear that, but now the display actually even looks clearer because I don't have the protective plastic on it anymore. So this is the first time I've seen this without the protective plastic, and it's even a nicer display than I originally thought. And so now let's talk a little bit about the usability and just sort of the form factor here. If you are somebody who has an ATEM or you've used an ATEM, you notice that ATEMs have a lot of buttons on them. But the thing about all these buttons on the ATEMs is if you're not in the Blackmagic universe, you end up not using most of these, because a lot of these are designed for people who have like a Blackmagic camera and you're controlling the camera through this, or something along those lines, like that whole Blackmagic ecosystem, which is pretty cool. But if you don't have that, you're pretty much just using the switching functions, maybe some of the picture-in-picture stuff on here for the most part. And what I like about the L4 is that you pretty much use everything on here. It is a very utilitarian setup. So you've got your input switchers right here, numbers 1 through 5. Obviously, those are going to be the biggest buttons. You also have sort of menu options here, main, picture-in-picture, keying, settings, switching, audio, which kind of correspond to most of these over here. These are also some of your menu settings right there. And then you have menu and cut. This menu button is sort of interesting because it doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't do much. And then cut is the button that you press to do the cut automatically, or as you can kind of see, let's see, you do have this T-bar right here, so I can fade in or cut, manually using the T-bar right there, which is very satisfying and very fun. And then you also have this knob here to help you navigate through stuff or select things. It's a knob and a push button. So it's kind of cool because you have the ability to use either touch or physical controls to navigate through the entire interface of the switcher, which is just super nice. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty simple. That's pretty basic. It works pretty well, again, especially like if you look at this as a switcher with a nice built-in display. You're not trying to be a Rodecaster Video or a YOLO box or Ecamm Live. Like, this is running into my computer right now, specifically because this has no onboard recording capabilities or anything along those lines, just USB into the computer, and I'm good to go. And it looks good. It doesn't drop frames or do anything like that. It's been very reliable. I have had this on, I've left it on for many, many days at a time as I've just been testing it out. But specifically today, I've left it on for several hours before I started recording because I wanted to just, kind of confirm it definitely does get a little bit warm. Not like crazy hot, but a little bit warm. And there is a fan. I don't know if I kind of get close to it. I don't know if you can hear that fan noise, but it's definitely audible. I don't think it's going to be picked up on a microphone like this, but depending on the microphone that you're using, it's not something you probably want next to a microphone that picks up a lot of like room tone or anything. Now, in addition to that fan noise and sort of that heat that happens here, there are also some things that I would either like to see changed or just things that I don't particularly like about this switcher, keeping in mind that you are getting a lot for your $540. So I think keeping that in mind kind of keeps things reasonable. But a big one, like I mentioned kind of a minute ago, is the audio. The audio inputs, it's just, they're not very good. And the audio output, the headphone output is like, I can barely hear, I can tell that there's audio coming in, but if you want to like sit there and monitor your audio with high quality, even using nice headphones, it's like such a weak headphone amp, and the preamps just aren't great. I was originally going to connect my audio directly into here to run it for this video, but I just couldn't get anything reliable. So what I'm doing instead is actually I have this microphone, the Hollyland Lark, connected to my A7S III, and then I'm using the audio through the HDMI input, because when I go into the audio settings, right here you can kind of see I have audio selected for HDMI 2. So you do have your external audio that can be connected. You can have audio follow video, and then you also have SDI and all of your sources. So for me, that's kind of been a way, and this is even true for some of the ATEMs as well, that's kind of been a way to maybe bypass the less than great audio processing of most of these switchers, is not using their built-in audio, but running audio through a camera. So like my FX3 right here has 2 XLR inputs. I could use that and then have 2 XLR mics basically running through here, or just using the regular mic input on the A7S III over here, which I know that this microphone through this camera sounds pretty decent, and then I can run that through here and it works quite well, and I can monitor my audio right here and sort of see my levels and everything. So you can mix audio from all of your HDMI sources, all of your different inputs in addition to that external audio, but the external audio is definitely the weakest point. It's like, this thing does a lot. You got this beautiful screen, you got all these inputs, you got all these sources, adding in high quality audio on top of that, like, Again, the Rodecaster Video has a Rodecaster Duo built inside of it, but the Rodecaster Duo by itself is a $500 device. So keeping expectations in line with the price, you know, audio is definitely secondary with these types of video switchers. And traditionally, what I do when I'm using something like the L4 or an ATEM or the Ulanzi is I just run them into Ecamm. You could also use OBS. And then I connect like my Rodecaster Pro separately through USB. So I have this running in through one USB, that running in through the audio on USB, and then I just mix them with my software like Ecamm, and they all line up and everything works great, and then I have high quality audio and high quality video. Now, something else you might have noticed when I was showing the tour of this is the USB on the side and even the USB back here. For some reason, some inexplicable reason, they're USB-A. I have no idea why, because USB-C just has been the standard for many, many years. Plus, when you're doing something like this, you want to make sure you're using high-speed cables. You can get high-speed USB-A cables, but if you're anything like me at this point, you probably have a lot more high-speed USB-C cables, C to C, rather than C to A. So I don't see why they wouldn't put USB-C on here. I feel like that's very, very strange, and this should be a USB-C thing, because also in trying to set up, you know, anytime I stream, most of the time I end up needing to use an adapter. Especially in this setup, I'm far away from my computer, so I need a longer USB cable to reach over there, so I'm always swapping out cables and trying to figure out my adapters and getting adapters that actually work. And it's, you know, it's one of those things that if this were just a USB-C port like it is on every other switcher I've ever used since the ATEM came out, that would make things a lot easier. So that's very strange. Not really sure why they would have chosen to do that. The other thing that I'm not too crazy about all the way is the menu and the interface. There's a decent user guide that you can get online, and of course it's a PDF, so you can just search for things. If you're, you know, you can just Command F, search for the term you're looking for to figure things out. There's not a lot of explanation here, and even some things kind of make sense, but like down here I have this computer thing, this microphone thing. Like for audio, what does that necessarily even mean? I've got my switching here, I can change my brightness, but then what is being applied to what input isn't always clear, which, by the way, I'm doing no color adjustments on this. Normally when I run something through Ecamm Live, I apply a LUT or I change some of the colors to try to make it look like my normal edited videos, but I didn't want to give any misinterpretations of how this like interprets colors, I guess. So this is just colors straight from the camera, straight into the L4. Obviously, I did try to match like white balance and exposure on my camera so they don't look totally different as I'm switching between them. But these are just the colors straight from the camera, straight here, straight to your eyeballs. And then let's see here, jump down here. So we can also do some basic things like picture-in-picture, which is pretty cool. You can sort of see I went into the pip menu here, and then a little pip popped up, and I can pop that up here, which is kind of like, just side note, this projector camcorder from 2013, my FX3, you know, this is a $4,000 camera. This is, I don't know what it was, new $300-ish camera. Obviously this picture quality is not the same, but it's not, it holds up surprisingly well. I did a whole video about this camera. You should definitely check that out. So you do have basic pip functionality if you want to. And of course, when you go into the pip, you can then choose where you want to change. Oops, I'm changing everything, but you can change the, where the pip is, you know, what corner it's in. And then you also do have some basic keying options. Right now, I don't have anything. This is gonna look very weird because I have no green screen or anything. My watch band is transparent. My hand is not connected to, oh, the camera turned off. But hey, the logo is keyed. Well, anyway, my camera's now gone into demo mode with the key being turned on. So that's also a thing you can do. And so it is really nice that this does have picture-in-picture and keying, because those things can be really helpful. But anytime you're trying to kind of go beyond that, I would then, you know, rely on your software. Or if you don't want to rely on software, that's where you need something that's a more full-on production suite, like a Rodecaster Video or a YOLO box, to do all that stuff in the unit itself, just with much higher quality. Now you can also change, you don't have to just cut or dissolve. You do have some different transition effects that you can, you know, look at that, no star wipe, unfortunately, but I can do all these different effects as I'm cutting through stuff. Hello, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, sorry, that was fun. And then of course there's the fade there. You can change your cut duration, you can do automatic cutting and all that stuff. The thing that drives me crazy, which you might have picked up on as I've been switching throughout this video in real time, is that there is no direct cutting. So what that means is right here you can change the cut method. One of them, the one I'm using right now, is kind of the standard program preview mode. So in the left here is preview, this is what's up next, and the right, this is program, this is what you're actually seeing. And I can switch between those basically by selecting what I want to come up next in the preview window and then pressing cut, and I will cut to that. I could also then move the T-bar to do that as well. This is a good thing because this is how video switching is done in pretty much any professional environment, any broadcast environment. You don't want to do things live on the fly. You want to make sure you set everything up in your preview and then move it over to your program, because that reduces the amount of errors and mistakes significantly. However, for me, for someone who's just a solo content creator who's often being the person switching things while trying to present, while trying to pay attention sometimes to a live stream or a guest or, podcasts and all the different things you can do with this, having to then push one extra button every time I want to switch is very annoying, because if I just want to go back and forth from this to this, once I have them set, I can just cut. But if now I suddenly want to go to this camera over here, I have to push that and then go over here. For whatever reason, there is no direct cutting option. And even though that is the less professional way to do things, every other switcher that I've used, including the higher end ones, have the option to just enable direct cutting, where you just push the button and that's what it cuts to. And that, in situations like I find myself in, maybe you find yourself in pretty regularly, that's the most helpful way to do it. I'm kind of confused about why that's not included here. That does seem like something that would be pretty easy to add in a firmware update. So maybe it's something we will see in the future, although I don't know how often there are going to be firmware updates for the L4. It doesn't seem like there's been a ton of them since its release. That does seem like a feature that would be pretty easy to add though. And so that's something you're just gonna notice as you go through the menu and the interface, is some things make total sense, work exactly like you would expect, and other things are a little bit cryptic with no explanation. And it's all very utilitarian, but it works, I guess it works well enough for the most part, especially for the price, but that's where you start to notice some of the polish maybe not being there that you would see in something like a Rodecaster or even an ATEM that has been around a long time and has sort of been more refined. And then one other thing I want to cover, which I don't view this as a negative because I feel like I understand why this is the case, is the fact that this is a 1080 switcher and not a 4K switcher. The thing with 4K, because that was a big deal when the Rodecaster video came out, this is $1,200. Why does it not 4K? I kind of cover that in my video all about this. 4K video switching is exceptionally difficult and gets exceptionally expensive currently with like modern technology and modern just technological limitations, also trying to keep things down in price. If you go through, go to B&H Photo, go to whatever website you buy your video gear from and search up 4K switchers and see if you can find anything that even remotely touches on the capabilities of a Rodecaster video for under like $6,000. It doesn't exist. There are a couple things. You can get 4K 4-input capture cards from like Elgato and Blackmagic. Those kind of get closer to the $800, $1,000 price range, especially if you need to buy an external enclosure to use it with a Mac. And that's just to capture 4K sources, not switching, not adding effects, not processing audio, none of that stuff. That's just straight up capture cards. There are a few 4K switchers that are maybe around the like $2,000 to $3,000 price range, but I haven't found them to be from any like well-known brands. I have no idea how reliable they are. Once you get into the more reliable 4K switchers from things like Blackmagic or Roland or whatever, you're getting into significantly higher price points. And even then, a lot of them still have they're kind of just basic switchers with kind of the same capabilities as this, not the full-on like scene building, auto switching, crazy high audio quality as well. So the thing with 4K is like, if there were a button to just, would you like this to be 4K? I would push that button. I want a 4K video switcher for sure. But something I learned, especially learning more about the Rodecaster video, is that 4K, as GoPro would say, is 4King hard to do and expensive. And I think that every company does know, like, if we could just make a $500 ATEM that's 4K, it would dominate everything, right? That's the thing everybody would buy. So if you could do it, a company would do it. Like, they're not allergic to money, the fact that they haven't done it kind of shows that there is that limitation with technology, keeping price down, keeping reliability up. All that stuff is just not possible currently. Sure, it will be possible one day, hopefully. So this is a 1080 only switcher, but I do not view that as a negative. That is just kind of par for the course for any of these multi-HDMI input switchers that are under, you know, several $1,000s in price. And even though, again, it would be nice to have 4K switching for, you know, my workflow would be nice. Instead of recording internally to cameras normally, just be able to do this. 1080 kind of works for long form stuff when it comes to podcasts and things. Maybe you don't want 1 to 2 to 3 hour long 4K multicam files. Those aren't that fun to deal with. When it comes to live streaming, a lot of people either can't stream or even receive streams in 4K. And when it comes to these types of switchers specifically, while they are used by people like me, content creators who want, you know, you're in your home studio or wherever your office studio is and you want things to look as good as possible, where these really do find their home a lot is like event production, corporate work, situations where the client only wants 1080 and is probably only capable of handling 1080. Wherever it's going to be shown, wherever it's going to be distributed is 1080 only. So there is this bigger world outside of the YouTube content creator space where, you know, we want 4K, 8K, highest resolution possible. That does not represent the industry and the use case for these switchers at large. I just think that's an important thing to recognize currently, where we're kind of in this in-between phase of like, it feels like 4K might be possible, but it's not quite possible yet. Why isn't it? And it's, you know, all that to say is a 1080 switcher. These are all 1080 switchers. If you need a 4K switcher, be ready to 4K over a lot of cash. And so that brings me to the last thing I want to cover, which is where does this fit in the world of these types of video switchers that I've covered and that I use and that I own right here. Basically, the thing I've been talking about for the past few months, the difference between a switcher and a suite, which does sound like a brand of cigars. But anyway, so if I zoom out on this camera here, I have some switchers. These are all switchers. The ATEM and the Ulanzi have that $300 MSRP. The L4 has the $540, but obviously you're getting a lot more for your $540. All of these can do different things. You know, the ATEM has very robust software. The L4 has this beautiful display and a pretty simple interface. The Ulanzi is basically a more practical ATEM with a bit better audio capabilities and the ability to completely detach the faceplate. So all of your inputs can be in one spot, and then one little USB cable can do this. And it also looks like there's a face, which it looks like a Muppet, and I love that. So these are just switchers, which basically what I mean by that is you're just putting a bunch of inputs in and you're switching between them. The ATEM has the ability, you can attach, you know, an SSD and record directly to that. If you get the ISO models, which are a little more expensive, then you can record individual tracks that can also create DaVinci Resolve project files straight from the switcher. The Ulanzi is just like a pass-through switcher. You can't connect a hard drive and record to this. You need to send this to a computer, so you can use something like Ecamm or OBS to do your recording. Same with the FeelWorld. There's no recording capabilities in here. You need to send it out somewhere. And these are basically, that's what they do. They switch between video sources. You got a little bit of picture-in-picture, you got a little bit of chroma keying options, and that's pretty much it. And that's what you expect from these, and that's where the price range. Then you have production suites. So that's where you have things like the Rodecaster Video and the YOLObox Ultra. And what makes these suites so sweet is all of the different stuff they can do. So they not only do video switching, the Rodecaster obviously has that phenomenal audio processing as well, but they can build out scenes. They can do all the stuff where sometimes it looks like I'm using Ecamm Live, and you can do very complex overlays. You can add in graphics. You can add in the case of both of these actually, auto switching where you can assign audio to different cameras and it switches automatically between them. You just have a lot more capabilities in that way. The YOLObox obviously does have a built-in screen because the whole thing is just a screen. There's really no physical buttons on this, whereas the Rodecaster is sort of the opposite. It's all physical buttons and then you need to connect a display. The Rodecaster does have the best audio processing. The YOLObox kind of has the most robust streaming capabilities because you can put like sports overlays and sports scores directly on screen. You can also just pop up comments directly from like YouTube or Facebook or whatever onto your stream, just like you would with Ecamm Live. Currently, the Rodecaster Video does not have that capability. So that's what I kind of say these are suites, because they just do so much more than just switching between sources. And so if you're wondering, well, this is $300, this is $1,200, that's kind of why there is that difference. And so where the FeelWorld fits, I feel, is kind of right in the middle. So actually it's sort of perfect. Look at this. You can make some visuals here, some fun visuals. Maybe I should do a whole video where I kind of like compare all the different switchers and suites and help you figure out which one's best for you. But generally, my opinion, just all my opinion, is that if you just want a basic switcher, ATEMs and the Ulanzi are the way to go. I would actually choose the Ulanzi over the ATEM for basic switching because it's just a lot more practical if you're not in the Blackmagic ecosystem. If you're using all Blackmagic cameras, then the ATEM probably makes more sense. Or if you want to use the Blackmagic software a lot, then the ATEM makes more sense. But if you want just hardware switching and you're not in that Blackmagic ecosystem, the Ulanzi is actually a better unit to use. It's just way more user-friendly, kind of has some cooler features to it. If you want to upgrade to some of the more expensive ATEMs, like the ISO models, the price does go up a little bit, but then you do have some extra capabilities like individual track recording, onboard recording. And then obviously you can get stuff like the ATEM Extreme if you need more inputs. This has 8 HDMI inputs and just 8,000 buttons as well. And the other end of the spectrum are the suites over here where you may not even need to connect them to a computer. You can run entire productions, great looking productions, just from the units themselves, or you can connect them to the computer if you want to run them through software or stream more traditionally or whatever, or use, in the case of the Rodecaster, something like Rode Central. So you have this over here, and I feel like the FeelWorld is right in the middle. It is not a suite. It very much has the feature set of a traditional switcher, but it does give you a bit cooler of a design, and it gives you a way more usable thing. If you've ever had to set up external displays or figure out how to attach monitors to a switcher so you can see your program in your preview, I think if you've done that, you know why this is such a valuable, cool thing. And then also the fact that you have still the option to do a program out HDMI. So you still can also run a separate display with this. And then you have a dual display setup with only needing one external display. And so I think that's where it fits, especially at its price point and with its feature set. So hopefully this kind of showed you what this switcher can do, gave you some ideas of what to look for, and kept expectations, you know, in the realm of reality, which is it's good for most of the time. But speaking of things that exceed expectations, thank you to everyone who helps support my channel through YouTube channel memberships. And if you want to learn more about different video switchers, check out these videos right here. Switch over to one of these videos right here.